The cold steel of the handcuffs clamped around Elias Thorne's wrists, echoing through the airport concourse. Camera flashes burst like lightning, burning humiliation into memory. Only an hour earlier, Thorne had been a man of national authority, a voice that could ground every aircraft with a single call. Now he was just another suspect in a suit, two guards mistaking him for trouble. It had all started with one glance. The air at Olympia Metropolitan was humid, thick with late-night impatience. Thorne wanted only quiet, a shower, and the silence of home. His charcoal suit whispered against marble as he moved toward the exit. His titanium briefcase locked tight. Inside were classified documents with enough weight to shift global markets. Near Gate 23, two security officers lingered. The younger Flynn snickered. "Look at that big shot walk." His partner Garrison smirked. "Thinks he runs the world. Let's remind him he doesn't." Thorne sensed the hostility immediately. Decades in intelligence had trained him to read danger. From a breath-away evening, Sir Garrison called. Traveling alone, Thorne stopped. "I am where you headed in such a hurry. Is my destination a security concern?" Thorne asked, calm and deliberate. Garrison tilted his head. "You for the profile." "We're watching. What profile is that black suit?" "Fancy case, acting too confident." The insult was subtle but clear. "You mean the profile of a federal official returning from duty?" Thorne replied evenly. "Open that case." Garrison snapped. Thorne's hand tightened on the handle. "You don't understand. I'm Elias Thorne, Deputy Chief of Staff, National Security Council." The words landed like stone, but Garrison only laughed. "Got ID for that story?" Thorne withdrew his badge, gold-plated, unmistakably federal. Garrison didn't even glance. "Nice prop. Anyone can buy one online." Around them, people stopped, phones rising red, recording lights blinking. "I've identified myself as required." Thorne said, "We make the rules here." Flynn barked, "You're coming with us." "Then call your supervisor," Thorne ordered. "We're Homeland Security now." But Garrison lunged for the briefcase. "Do not touch that case," Thorne warned. "Hands up," Garrison roared. Shoving him against a pillar, the case hit the floor with a heavy crack. A gasp rippled through the crowd, cuffed it into Thorne's skin. "You are detaining a senior federal officer," he said coldly. "Do you know what you're doing?" "Relax," Flynn scoffed. "You're not helping your case." "I presented credentials," Thorne replied. "Proceeding without verification ends your careers." Murmurs grew louder. Phones pointed straight at the officers. Garrison's confidence faltered. "Flynn, check it." Flynn picked up the badge, stared, then froze. "Garrison," he whispered, pale. "It's real." Garrison snatched it back, eyes darting between the seal and Thorne's glare. "Where'd you get this?" "It was issued by the government." "You're violating," Thorne said. Then the radio crackled. "Code Delta 7. Concourse G, federal principal in distress." "FBI on hold." Both men froze. "Delta 7, Flynn stammered. "It means," Garrison croaked, "we just arrested the wrong man." Flynn's hands trembled as he unlocked the cuffs. Keys clattering to the floor. Thorne rubbed his wrists, face unreadable. "Sir, it was a misunderstanding." Flynn began. "Don't use that word." Thorne cut in, voice like glass. Garrison bent a hand in the briefcase. "You don't have clearance to touch that," Thorne said. Then came the sound of heels. The airport supervisor, Miss Hayes, rushing forward, horror on her face. "Deputy Chief Thorne, I'm so sorry." She gasped. "Are you out of your minds?" she shouted at the officers. Two men in dark suits appeared. FBI Internal Affairs badges visible. "Sir, are you injured?" one asked. "I am fine." Dernan replied. The agent's eyes turned to the officers who touched him. "Silence, secure all footage." He ordered into his radio body cam data to OPR. The crowd parted. Someone pointed and shouted, "I know him, he's on the news." "The national security guy." The recognition spread fast, whispers rippling like waves. The two officers stood paralyzed, pale and sweating. The older bystander stepped forward. "What's insane," he said, "is that you thought you could treat him like any black man, and no one would care." The silence that followed was heavier than any noise. Thorne stood adjusting his cufflinks, concealing the tremor in his jaw. Around him, the chaos thinned into low murmurs of shame and shock. Miss Hayes shouted orders to clear the area. The FBI agents flanked Thorne, guiding him toward a secure exit. Cameras followed flashes cutting through the haze behind him. Garrison whispered, "We're finished." Thorne didn't turn. The rage and humiliation coiled inside him like a drawn blade. One agent handed back the briefcase. We'll debrief at HQ, sir. Thorn nodded once outside. The night glared against the glass, runway lights blinking like cold eyes. The echoes of what had just happened, power prejudice, exposure lingered unfinished in the air. The story far from over. Elias Thorn picked up his own briefcase from the floor. "I like to leave now," he said, his voice calm, of course. Deputy Chief, the lead FBI agent, replied. "We'll escort you out." Thorn walked away. Without a single backward glance at the two men whose careers had just imploded, his silence was a final damning verdict. Inside a black, unmarked government sedan, Agent Marcus Lee was waiting, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "Sir, are you injured?" he asked, his voice tight with controlled fury. "I'm just tired, Lee," he replied, flexing his hands. The angry red marks from the handcuffs were stark against his dark skin. "The press is already swarming the terminal." Lee reported grimly. "Video of the arrest is going viral as we speak." Thorn stared out the window at the passing city lights. "Let it circulate. This is the 4th incident in 6 months, Sir Lee said softly. The ID check at the Maxwell building, the mistaken identity during the Redwood Protocol, and now this." Thorn turned to him, his eyes like polished steel. "I document everything, Agent Lee. This time the whole world has a copy. Back at Olympia Metropolitan Airport, the consequences were swift and brutal. In a windowless security office, Garrison paced like a caged wolf, while Flynn sat with his head in his hands. The door opened and 2 men entered. One was their precinct captain. The other was a sharp-suited investigator from the DOJ's Office of Professional Responsibility, OPR. He looked at them as if they were something distasteful. "Effective immediately, you are both suspended pending termination." The captain stated, his voice flat. The OPR investigator dropped 2 thick folders on the table with a loud smack. "These are the federal charges we are prepared to file," he said, his voice like gravel. "Unlawful detainment of a federal officer, conspiracy to violate civil rights under color of law. Each one carries a sentence of up to 10 years. In a federal penitentiary." Garrison scoffed a last pathetic gasp of defiance. The investigator leaned forward. "You think this is a joke, the man you illegally detained and humiliated is the Deputy Chief of Staff for the National Security Council. He's an officer of the highest order. The entire nation is watching this footage right now." "We didn't know," Flynn stammered. "But you did it," the investigator cut him off, his voice lethal, "and that is the only thing that matters." The captain slid 2 resignation forms across the table. "You have one option, you sign these. Turn your badges and weapons, and disappear, or you can take your chances with a federal jury. Your choice, silence." Garrison stared at the papers, his face a mask of disbelief and rage. Flynn was openly trembling. The investigator tapped his finger on the folder. "The clock is ticking, officer," slowly. His movement stiff and broken, Garrison took a pen and signed his name. His career ended not with a bang, but with the scratch of a pen. Flynn did the same, badges and service weapons on the table. The captain commanded with trembling hands. They unclipped their badges and unholstered their guns for the last time, the heavy metal clattering on the cheap laminate. They were no longer officers. They were just 2 men who had made the biggest mistake of their lives, leaving them with nothing but the bitter lesson they were forced to swallow. The next morning, from a podium at NSE headquarters, Deputy Chief Elias Thorn gave a short, powerful statement to a room packed with reporters. "This incident was not about me," he stated, his voice resonating with calm authority. "It was about a system that too often sees a black man in a suit, not as a public servant but as a threat. Apologies born from the fear of consequences are meaningless. Real change comes from accountability." He took no questions, the message had been delivered.